Thanks for staying with us. So the debate on the constitutionality of the state of emergency declared by the president in Rivers State is not ending anytime soon, as mixed reactions have continued to trail the president's action despite since full gaining support from the legislature. The National Assembly actually had supported the president. So join us in our Abuja studio to give us his own perspective on the legality of the suspension of democracy in Rivers State is a lawyer and public policy expert, Dr. Charles Omoli. Welcome to the show, sir. Good to have you on.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so in the last 1 week about this issue of suspending democracy in Rivers State, many have come forward to express their views. Some who have come forward is the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, who said that it was a clear abuse of office, clear abuse of power, clear abuse of privileges, cutting across the three arms of government. Also, the Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka, also said that the manner in which it was declared totally betrayed true federalism. Finally, also the governor of Ibadan State also said that the democratic tenets must never be traveled with, and the presidency did this illegally, and the right-thinking members of the society must come out to oppose it. Now, these are various perspectives for different people. What are your views on the president's declaration of a state of emergency and sacking the governor and the lawmakers in that state?
Okay, thank you. Well, in terms of, the opinions you've expressed, I think it's a natural opinion given what's in the public domain. But people need to realize that in Section 305 of the Constitution, the tests that are there before state of emergency could be declared. Some of them are what I call objective tests. For example, if the nation is at war, so that that's an objective test. But for example, Section 3 subsection E of those lists of tests actually mentioned imminent danger. Now, that means if the president could declare state of emergency based on what is imminent, that means that is not something that has happened. It means that's not something that has was in public domain. As a result, a preemptive step could be taken by the president to avert what he's been told will happen. And for somebody who's also be operating the national security space, even at my own little level, the information I have clearly was that if the impeachment process had been allowed to continue and it became successful, the security implication for the Niger Delta was very serious from what I have seen. But these are things you don't discuss in the public. As a result, I think the problem we have is the lack of trust in government generally. As a result, we don't tend to give our leaders benefit of the doubt. So clearly, I'm certain the president must have made his decision, not just based on what has happened, but what he has been told will happen. And as a result, that falls within the tests. So the test to declare state of emergency is not just about what has happened, but what may happen, given the information that is.
Dr. Mole,
we don't have that information, therefore,
Dr. Mole,
we can't fully, yes.
I get that. And I think as a follow-up to that question, towards the comment you just made, when we see democracy played out in other parts of the world, the leader often tells the people exactly what's happening. They have an idea because people can actually study the political intricacies and say, okay, this is possibly what happened. But I think Nigerians are totally, completely in the dark. They have no clue. So you're saying there's a possibility of imminent danger, which Nigerians and the public knowledge, we have no clue about. So maybe it would have been better serving to the government if we have an inkling of what was considered before such an emergency was carried out.
No, well, actually, you have a point there. That could be a problem of the strategic communication challenge from the government, but also, again, within the security sector, even sometimes giving an inkling to the public could actually reveal sources and could endanger sources, that's giving government, intelligence. So I don't want to go into specifics. There are instances of sources having been killed because government announced certain things that they thought would happen, because the planners know that, for example, if only 3 of you know you are going to do something, bomb somewhere, and then the government announces that we are doing this because of that imminent threat. Clearly, if you are the leader, you know it's one of those 3 people that know about it that revealed it to the government.
Right.
So sometimes announcing things can reveal sources.
Okay.
But the issue here really, my issue is not so much of the declaration of the state of emergency. But I think I'm prepared to give the president the benefit of the doubt. Like I said, even at my own level, I have seen things that frightened me when I read them in terms of what could happen. So, but the second issue now is the issue of the suspension.
Okay, let me come to that in a minute. Let me come to the ladies.
That's a more problematic issue.
Dr. Moli, let me let the ladies throw a few questions in here.
Okay. Yes, okay, that's right.
Yes.
Yes, so many Nigerians are of the opinion that the speed with which the state of emergency was declared showed that the president and they're also fingering the minister for the FCT, that's Wike, that they had some special interest in the resources of Rivers State, and that was why we saw that speed of declaration of state of emergency in the state. I would like you to speak to that. Do they have any valid reason to have some of these insinuations?
Well, people can have insinuation based on their own, bias. But from what I can see here, one could actually say one of the greatest beneficiaries of this state of emergency is actually Governor Fubara himself. Because once impeachment article is released by the House of Assembly, it's on a clock. Within 7 days, this must happen. Within 30 days, this must happen. Within 3 months, this must happen. So that actually is a clock that will have started to run. And there's no way. And the security report, the bit of it I have seen, links the increased instability to that impeachment coming to fruition. So the issue here really is that the only way, really, that impeachment could have been stopped is through what the president did. There was no other way to stop that impeachment. So really, one could say that one of the beneficiaries of this actually the governor. The issue really, what I was saying earlier in relation to the suspension of the governor, which I thought was more problematic. Yes, there is no constitutional avenue or provision where the president is allowed to suspend the governor or the House of Assembly.
Yeah.
That is true. And I think the only explanation I could give to this, if I'm playing the devil's advocate from both sides, is the fact that it's purely based on doctrine of necessity. Because if you look at it, doctrine of necessity simply says what is otherwise unlawful will become lawful because of necessity. If it's to achieve a greater, prevent a greater harm to society. And we've seen that used globally. We've seen that even we used it to bring Jonathan to become acting president, by the National Assembly. The process National Assembly used is not constitutional. But everybody realized that we had to, in quote, go through extra legal process to save the country. So it's not a novel idea, so to speak. The reason why I said that is because if you look at every time, especially look at the state of emergency declared under Jonathan, they were for security reasons. So the governors were not material to those insecurity. So they were left in place. But if you look at it from Rivers State perspective, the real root, the center of that, or the causation of that insecurity is a spat between the governor and the House of Assembly. So if this emergency was declared and they were left in place, what that means is that it means the impeachment process will continue during the state of emergency because they will be left with their powers. So the inevitable or the avoidable security challenge that the impeachment will have caused will still have happened, even though we have state of emergency.
Okay. All right.
So looking at those, at those parameters, it's arguable to say the only way to avoid those catastrophe imminently is to actually make sure that impeachment process is stopped.
Okay.
And the only way it could be stopped if both parties were suspended.
Let me go on a very short break. When we come back, we continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still discussing the reactions to the state of emergency declared by the president. Nima was going to throw in.
Okay, as we speak, Sarah has taken the president.
Sarah, are you still there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Sarah has taken the president to court on this, and I'm wondering on my own, this is an initial 6-month suspension where the administrator will take control of the state. Is it possible that the issues that birthed this declaration of emergency, of a state of emergency, can be resolved in a much shorter time?
Oh, yes, it is possible. And if you look at the affirmations by both the House of Reps and Senate, they actually inserted that specifically in their approval of the proclamation that the 6 months is not set in stone, that if solution is found in a month, things can be restored. And this probably is it would be my advice that the protagonists in this affair, which is the governor and the House of Assembly, actually need to, use their energy to find solution right now, rather than starting all kinds of court processes again. This case has gone to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court have made a determination that did not bring peace. So clearly this has defied legal solution. There has to be a political solution. And I think they're coming together, and clearly one of the conditions has to be the impeachment article against the governor will need to be withdrawn by the House of Assembly, because from the reports I have read, that threat of impeachment is directly linked to potential insecurity. And you have to bear in mind here that when this government came, I'm not speaking for the government, but when they came to power, we know that our oil production was just a little over 1,000 barrels per day. And we know out of that, the Buhari administration had front sold about 700,000 of that till 2030, 2035. And they used that to borrow money. So really, what we had was very small to sell. Now the daily barrel is moving close to 2 million per day. This is not the time to decimate our oil infrastructure for the sake of politics. And I think, no government, I think, will fold their hands and wait. Because on one hand, if the president had waited, allowed the impeachment to go through, and everywhere is bombed all over the place, and now he declares state of emergency, people will support the state of emergency then, but it will be too late. Because what was avoidable would have been allowed to happen. So I think a little bit of trust. Even President Jonathan, I was surprised at his comment, because he has access to the president. He has access to what I call these high-level intelligence reports upon which that decision was made. I'm not sure whether he requested to see that before making his comment. Clearly, if all I'm going with is what is in the public domain, I will also think the president acted too hastily. But at my own level, I have access to a few more information than maybe the Joe public, and clearly the president will have access to a lot more. And from what I have seen, there's no way any leader could fold their hands and allow what I saw could happen in the Niger Delta, allow it to happen when it's clearly avoidable.
All right.
Okay, so for me, I would like to discuss, beyond the legality and constitutionality of this. I feel like it's been much discussed. I would like to, talk about the impact, what the effect of this emergency rule will be immediately and in the long term on governance and economic activities in the state. There are videos of, residents of Rivers State who are upset about this, who are even afraid what this may mean for them, mean for their businesses, them going around, So what do you think What would you say to the people of Rivers State? How would you tell them to take this information? This is beyond politics, beyond legality and constitutionality, just human interest here.
Well, I mean, one of the key criticism I have of this government in terms of this whole saga, really, is the appointment of a uniformed individual as the sole administrator. You know, for me, the
Former
optics doesn't
uniform,
look
sir.
good.
Retired.
There are plenty of qualified non-military people that could be appointed to this role. I mean, in 1962, when Akintola was removed, you know, in those days, it was replaced by Chief Maji Kodumi, another civilian. But since we've had military coups, then it seems anytime there's a state of emergency, they always sort of bring these uniformed people back. I don't think that is, because number one, the optics of it doesn't look good, in my view. So the government should take note of that we don't need to be bringing back uniformed people. This is a democratic civilian administration.
Well, so was a former,
and the
he's
dominance
retired,
of
right,
and the
Dr. Wale?
subservience of the military to civilian rule needs to be expressed clearly in many ways.
Right.
But in terms of the people, you know, I would say that, I mean, I'm not quite sure they will see much difference in terms of what's going on. The funds to the state have been released, I was told,
right,
you know, by the media, you know, reports. So clearly, I think things will go as normal. But I think the key effect here, like I keep saying, is that impeachment that was stopped by the actions of the president is actually going to avoid the inevitable insecurity that was predicted. But the parties need to sit down and fashion a solution here quickly to reduce this length of
Dr.
state
Mole,
of emergency.
There's a school of thought looking at the political perspective. Some say that, hey, PDP, for example, was a party that was somewhat in the downward spiral, you know, and this is just an opportunity for them to come together because now they somewhat have a consensus on this, and this is one anchor that they have to say, you know, we're fighting together against this illegality from the presidency. So looking at the political perspective, do you think if you want to play politics, is this an opportunity for PDP to revive itself somewhat, to have one ideology saying that we're going to fight the government on this angle, and hopefully that could bring back the party, the influence of the party back to the limelight?
Well, I mean, the problems we've seen within PDP, I think, goes beyond, I mean, just what's happening in one state. I mean, the Supreme Court just resolved who their national secretary should be just last week, I think. So, I mean, the issue around opposition, part of the challenge in this democracy is lack of effective opposition. And I think the reason, clearly many people have said it, is lack of ideological politics in the country. That's why you can, you know, people cross carpet all the time because political parties have become purely vehicles to attain power, not a collection of like-minded people, so to speak. So I think in terms of the party, yes, it might bring some immediate, appearance of unity, but I think the problem of the party, I think, is much deeper than this. So until they solve that fundamental division within the party, I'm not quite sure whether this will help them in terms of bringing a united front. They might even be united towards this particular issue, but I don't see that necessarily as being united towards everything else in terms of the challenge they have within the party.
All right.
Okay, just two quick questions. So the first one is, there are many people who are saying that the president has too much powers and that the constitution needs to be reviewed or amended to make it a true federal system of government that we are operating. That's what, do you think that is the way we should be, you know, looking at going, in a way that we adjust the constitution to just make it more federal, right? That's one. Then secondly, what do you foresee for Rivers State after this 6 months has elapsed? After everything, lifts the state of emergency and then the governor is either recalled back to office, what do you think would be the way forward for Rivers State?
Thank you. Well, in terms of the constitution amendment, I agree there are challenges we have with our current constitution. But if the truth is to be told, part of the problem we have in this country is actually the mindset of many of the people in the National Assembly. In the US, you see things like First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, 10th Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Constitution could be amended based on just one particular issue you want to fix. But the problem we have in Nigeria is, if you want to fix this little bit of the Constitution, others will now say, okay, for us to support this little bit you want to, change, they will bring their own demand. Okay, we need 10 more states, we need 15 more states. So our constitutional amendment in Nigeria is always modeled. It's never focused, on a particular area. And I think that is the problem we are going to have with anything constitutional amendment in this country. It's not focused on a particular area of the constitution or elements you want to change. People bring all manner of, demand, to support any change. And therefore, the small change you want to make in the constitution becomes much larger because of all the things everybody else bring in terms of their demand. Maybe the solution actually is to write a brand new constitution. After all, Kenya did that, just over a couple of decades ago. So we can actually have a completely new constitution written, and I think that might be the way to go rather than tinkering forever with the constitution that the foundation is not solid. In terms of what happens after the 6 months, but by law, the Constitution allows for another 6 months. So a total of 12 months is possible if this is not resolved. In my opinion, for what I can see, whether the 6 months is allowed to stay or even extended will all depend on the peace that both parties can agree to. If they can meet in the interest of the state and meet halfway, and stop all these impeachment proceedings that the House of Assembly wanted to do, and agree on a peace and a good way forward, that can reduce the 6 months. But if they continue this staying in their camps and throwing stones over everybody's head, you could be in for 12 months in Rivers State of sole administration.
All right.
And that, I think, is not good for democracy.
Let me go on a very short break. When we come back, we wrap up on this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we're going to be wrapping up on this conversation. Nima had a question. Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking at this and I feel that it's unresolvable where we are going, but it's also very scary that you just said 12 years.
12 months.
12 months. I mean, it can be extended to 12 months. That's how scared I was. It sounded like years, And we want to be in a democratic system, and we have to have a democratic system in Rivers State. Is this, if the worst case scenario happens, is totally unresolvable, can there, is there any other provisions of the Constitution that resolves this democratically?
What are the other options, right?
What other options are there?
Well, I mean, there are not many other options. I think if after 12 months they are still entrenched in their own position and there is no rapprochement between them, then clearly, in the interest of the state, somebody will have to go. I mean, so is that the governor or the House of Assembly? Somebody has to go. But clearly, from what is said, it will be the governor that would be easier to remove as a result. But what that would have done is it would have given the government 12 months, if we go that far, to put measures in place to mitigate any potential impact. And number two, there are many supporters of the governor himself who after 12 months would have been, some would have been fed up to say, look, this needs to be resolved. So as a result, the only solution I see if after 12 months is, somebody will have to be removed through legal means, and that really means through impeachment, because removing the 27 members or House of Assembly is more problematic, is more difficult rather, because that means you have to recall each of them, through each of their constituencies. That's a lot more laborious and difficult undertaking. But whereas impeachment of the governor would be, a more of a straightforward thing.
Okay.
If after 12 months.
Right.
I think they need to understand that there's time to have peace in that state. and there's a need for compromise.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that I think is what's not happening at the moment.
Okay. Mariam?
And by
Yeah,
the way,
so-
the other thing is, you know, the president need to have stern words with the Minister of FCT side of things. They need to, you know, stop this nonsense and allow the state to have some peace.
Exactly.
You know, so again, that means compromise
Right.
on their side as well.
Okay.
So I'd also like to know what the opposite will be if they're able to resolve on time and everything. Is this something that can be reviewed in, let's say, what, in a month? You know, but I'm also curious, just, you know.
Oh, yes.
Okay, just so that
Oh,
you
yes,
answer
it
both
can,
at the
it
same
can.
time.
I mean, they can, if they are able to come to an agreement, the president will be informed, okay, we've reached an agreement, and it will reverse the proclamation, and the House will again, you know, affirm it, and then the sole administration is vacated.
Okay. But I'm also curious to know, like, in the period of the suspension, how does the suspended governor carry himself? Does he still have his security details? You know, like, what does he do in this this time?
citizen.
Where does he stay? Where is he?
He's a regular citizen.
Is this just a regular citizen walking the streets?
It's almost like asking what happened to a suspended senator. I mean,
Governor is different.
well, I think in this case, yes, he still is a citizen. I mean, you don't need to be a governor to have security detail. I'm sure he will still have security detail. And some
Out of
things
his
like
immunity.
vehicles and other things I'm sure will still be made available to him. I mean, for example, the House of Assembly members are suspended. They're not vacating their residences. They're still going to be there during the period of suspension. So some of the things they're entitled to will still be there. It's just the executive or legislative powers that they cannot exercise at the moment. So I'm sure the governor will be safe. I mean, we have enough security as he needs. But I think, like I said, the important thing is they need to meet each other. And this is where all those elders, you know, in Rivers and even in the country as a whole, need to bring both parties together with very stern warning. It's almost like locking them up in a room and saying they're not getting out until they agree something, you know. So, I mean, you know, there has to be a drastic step taken to ensure that there is agreement between them to shorten this state of emergency and return the state to normality.
Okay. I think I'll let you go at this point. But finally, do you think the president can survive all this barrage of criticism? Because there's quite a bit of people that are, they're criticizing this move. Not so much of the state of emergency, but the illegality of suspending the governor and the lawmakers. So this is something that the president also has to consider. Do you think he can survive this barrage of criticisms?
I'm sure he can survive it. I mean, having the state of emergency and leaving the governor and the House of Assembly in place is a fruitless exercise.
Right.
Because what you are more or less saying is if that's what he did, then the impeachment process will have continued during state of emergency.
Right.
So you can see the inconsistency in that. So the temperature will continue to rise even though we have state of emergency. So I don't think by necessity he had any choice other than suspend them.
Okay.
You know, so I'm sure maybe what the government could do over time is to see if some of this intelligence report could be, you know,
revealed
one way or the other, some of them made public so that the public can understand the thinking behind it.
All right, thank you so much,
so
Dr.
that,
Mali. I have to let you
people will
go.
understand that there's a logic to it.
I have to let you go at this point. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate your views this morning. Let's go on a very short break. When we come back, we continue with the show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.